know this place, don't you? You know it's waiting for you. You know that this is what you deserve. I woke up from a nightmare. At least, I thought it was a nightmare. I couldn't be sure, not after everything that's happened. I was lying in a soft bed. The room was rather pleasant. I was in the country somewhere. The window was open, and sunlight was falling in. It made my skin itch. My left leg was throbbing. I tried to move, and that's when I noticed I was strapped to the bed with heavy leather belts.
You're awake.
Why am I tied up?
Would you like some gruel?
Let me go!
Calm down. All in good time. It's just a safety precaution. And now for your straps. There you are.
Why am I here?
Your breakfast. Nice and hot. And some tea.
Where am I?
In the clinic, of course.
What clinic?
Aren't you a laugh? Now, you finish your breakfast, and when you're done, just press this little button. Oh, and don't forget your pill.
What pill? What is this place?
You're a silly little boy, do you know that? Doctor's orders twice daily with food. You're not going to be naughty, are you?
Are you going to spank me?
Take your medicine.
What is it?
It's just an antibiotic.
And I'm supposed to trust you?
It's really quite simple. If you don't take your pill, you won't get any gruel.
Perish the thought.
Mr. Higgins, Mr. Hewitt!
Two orderlies in white lab coats entered the room.
Mom?
Mr. Sinclair needs some help with his medicine.
They approached the bed and held me down.
Open wide.
They forced my mouth open.
There you are. That wasn't so bad now, was it? Here, have some water. It's very important you take your medicine on time.
What are you doing to me?
We're saving your life, Mr. Sinclair. I don't think you quite appreciate how serious your infection is.
Where am I? What's happening to me?
You're just too much. Ta-ta.
Help me! Somebody! Anybody! There is a darkness that is more than an absence of light. It's a living thing. It takes you completely. My name is John Sinclair. I work for Scotland Yard, Special Division.
Marylebone, London, 3:24 a.m. Bill Connolly was sleeping peacefully. So peacefully, in fact, that it took him a while to realize the phone was ringing.
Oh. Hello?
Bill? Is that you?
Who's this?
Bill, it's me. It's Sheila.
Who? Sheila? Sheila! Hey, how are you?
Sheila Hopkins, of course. Ever since he first laid eyes on her, he hadn't been able to get her out of his mind.
I'm sorry to call you so late.
No, that's quite... You all right?
I just didn't... Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know who else to call.
It's all right, it's fine. What's the matter?
I just needed to... I didn't know who else...
What happened? Sheila?
Bill... She...
What happened?
She's dead, Bill. Cordelia is dead.
Nunhead, southeast London, 10:28 a.m. Abbott and Sons was located in a rather shabby-looking Victorian house that loomed eerily over the neighborhood.
Well, here we are.
Charming place.
Hello? Is anyone here?
Hello?
And how may I be of assistance?
Oh, you scared me.
The man stood at the other end of the long room. He was perfectly still. His bony hands were clasped in front of him. Sheila Hopkins and Bill Connolly nervously approached him.
Step into my parlor.
Are you Mr. Abbott?
I am indeed.
Mr. William Abbott was a tall, elegant gentleman, but his face had a deathly pallor. His features were rough, his lips and jaw almost grotesque. His eyes had a dark red gleam.
Welcome.
He was, however, rather neatly dressed in a double-breasted suit. The suit was, of course, black, as is befitting for a man in his profession.
It is, I presume, a solemn occasion that brings you here.
A friend of mine, Cordelia Barnes.
A tragedy, indeed. She was so very young, so tender.
I wanted to...
You wanted to pay your respects.
Yes.
And you are, I presume, a relative of the deceased?
She was my friend.
And what a very dear friend you are. I am so terribly sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
Abbott and Sons was one of the oldest and most reputable funeral homes in London. It used to be anyways. As of late, the company seems to have fallen on hard times, even though the clientele was still doing what it always does, dying.
Would you mind if could I see her?
Oh, but that is most irregular.
Oh, please.
A woman's tears can unlock any man's heart.
The viewing gallery was located in the back, a small, windowless, wood-paneled room filled with flowers.
Death is a teacher. It teaches us humility and strength. Ask yourself, what kind of person do you want to be in the face of this tragedy? And there she lies, all the world's worries now safely behind her.
Cordelia Barnes almost looked as if she was asleep in that open coffin. She wore a short-sleeved white dress, and her hair was neatly combed. Her hands were folded above her chest.
Cordelia!
Bill Connolly and the funeral director remained by the door, at a respectful distance.
I heard it was a drug overdose.
I'm afraid I'm not at liberty to disclose.
Sheila Hopkins noticed a single fly hovering above Cordelia Barnes's body. Then, the fly landed on the still, dead lips. Slowly it crawled down the unmoving face, towards the arms. Sheila's eyes, transfixed, followed the creature. And then, suddenly...
Bill, would you come here, please?
Yes?
Do you see that?
What?
Look at her arms. What do you see?
The needle marks.
Mr. Abbott,
At your service?
what happened to Cordelia?
I'm afraid I don't quite follow.
What did she die of?
I'm afraid I can't.
What did she die of?
Heroin, I'm afraid.
I don't believe you.
I'm sorry?
Look at her. Those needle marks.
Yes, that is what happens when a person...
They're old.
I beg your pardon?
These track marks are old. The tissue is scarred. Do you see?
What are you getting at?
If she died of a drug overdose, shouldn't we be seeing a fresh injection mark?
Oh, I'm afraid that's quite outside my area of expertise.
Perhaps we could see the death certificate.
The death certificate?
Yes. One moment, please. Here.
May I?
As you can tell, everything is in order.
Dr. Samuel Meredith, who's he?
A local practitioner. He's the one who issued it. A gentleman beyond reproach.
And do you happen to have the gentleman's address?
The clinic, 11:47 a.m.
They had given me antibiotics, painkillers, and God knows what else. The next morning, I was feeling stronger. Higgins and Hewitt had unbuckled me, and I was taking my first careful steps. It hurt to walk, and I was limping. My leg wound, I was told, was due to a gunshot. Gradually, my memories came back to me.
Be hungry when she wakes.
Who are you people? No!
Up and about, are you?
I'm planning my escape.
Oh, aren't you a laugh? You have a visitor. Good morning, DCI Sinclair.
A rather attractive young woman of East Indian descent entered the room. She was wearing a short, tight-fitting dress. Her eyes were fixated on me.
Do you remember who I am?
You're hard to forget. The last time I saw you, you put a bullet in me.
You ought to thank me for that.
Thank you.
I've come to pick you up.
I like the sound of that.
Be a good boy now.
I hope you like good boys.
I prefer them bad. Put your arm around me. Can you walk, Sinclair?
The question is, can I dance? Give me just a moment to pack my clothes.
Slowly, the fog in my mind was starting to lift. I could feel my strength returning.
Let's take the lift, shall we?
Who are you?
Control.
Oh, do I get a safe word?
Sir James sent me. I'm Glenda Perkins. I'm your new handler.
I believe I requested a secretary.
Denied. Sorry, old chap. There's been a change of policy. Every field agent now has a handler. Control division.
Sounds rather strict.
In our line of work, there are only two options. Control or defeat. And I will never accept defeat.
You like to be on top, don't you?
In all things. Let's go, Inspector.
Evelina Road, Southeast London, 11:39 a.m.
It is odd, don't you think?
The needle marks.
Like Cordelia Barnes, Sheila had been struggling with drug addiction for many years, but now she was clean and sober, and her friend was dead.
I met her at the Carlton Rehabilitation Clinic. She was clean, I know she was.
She may have relapsed.
Maybe. Bill, I...
You all right?
Yes, I'm fine. I just... That could have been me in that coffin.
I know. It's...
I keep thinking of all the plans she had. And now, the things she'll never do, the life she'll never lead.
Come here.
Bill Connolly took her in his arms. He could feel her tears against his cheek. His heart was beating in his chest.
After my brother died, I thought the world had ended. All I had left was my friends.
Well...
And now...
I'm your friend, I think.
You are?
You can't let this destroy you, you know? You have to go on. Life is never easy. All you can hope for is the strength to endure.
Sheila raised her fingers to his face and gently touched his cheek.
Sorry, I think we should...
Is that a gun?
We don't know what's out there.
We don't know what's out there. Bill Connolly was a former tabloid reporter. 4 months ago, he survived a mass shooting in New York. From then on, he had dedicated himself to understanding the true nature of our world, the secret mechanisms that govern us all. He had, in a sense, peeked behind the curtain, and once you look, it changes you forever. Bill Connolly shoved the gun in his jacket pocket. He had his camera on a strap around his shoulder.
Perhaps he's not in.
His hours are posted, right here.
Well, the practice should be open. Let's go around the back.
He slowly pushed the low garden gate open.
Bill!
What? Don't scare me like that.
The back door. It's open.
Let's take a look.
Is that legal?
Of course not. Hello?
I don't think we should be here.
I know, me neither. Over there. The door over there. That must be where he sees his patients.
What is that sound?
Maybe he's eating his lunch. Dr. Meredith? Let's take a look. Oh my...
The creature was crouching in the doctor's main office. It was very gaunt. Its hands, its fingers were unnaturally elongated like claws. Its mouth resembled that of a deep sea fish, filled with razor-sharp teeth. It wore an ill-fitting black double-breasted suit, now stained with blood, and a top hat. The man on the floor was freshly dead.
What is it doing?
Lunch.
The creature was feasting on the dead man's entrails. His legs, his arms had already been partially chewed off. His face was unrecognizable. The creature took off its top hat, raised its head like a snake and sniffed the air. Then it turned its white head. Its eyes were staring directly at Bill and Sheila.
My God.
Bill Connolly raised his camera.
Shoot it!
Right. Yeah, good idea. Oh, thank God.
Oh, that was close.
What was that?
Look!
How is that possible? I shot it right in the chest.
Run!
They turned around and ran towards the back door. The creature leapt to its feet and raised itself up to its full height.
Take my hand.
It's coming closer!
Lovely. Could you go a little faster, please?
I'm wearing heels!
Perhaps you should reconsider your fashion choice.
Oh, hold on!
Right now?
Come on, you son of a bitch!
What are you doing?
The creature reached for her with its long, bony fingers. Sheila Hopkins held out her high-heeled shoe like a baton. As soon as the creature was within reach, she swung hard.
Bastard!
The heel had hit the thing right on its head. The creature stumbled. It was dizzy, but only for a moment.
Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go!
They ran out of the house and into the garden.
Oh my God! Not another one!
The second creature was crouching on the low garden wall. It too wore a suit and top hat.
Why are they dressed like that?
We have to go.
I have another heel.
I think we're gonna need something more than shoes.
The creatures were closing in.
The car!
Oh, we made it!
Or not. One of the creatures leapt forward and landed on the roof of the car. Without hesitation, Bill Connolly threw himself at the pale, gaunt creature, but the thing wrapped its claw-like hands around Bill's throat. Sheila thrust herself straight at the thing, throwing it off balance.
Now, please, Mr. Connolly.
Yes, of course. Thank you, ma'am.
Oh, they're clawing at the windows. Oh, they're still there. Go faster.
Don't tell me how to drive. It makes me nervous.
Oh my God, left, left! What are you doing? Pay attention!
I'm calling a friend.
Right now? Why? Invite him for a pint?
You have reached DCI John Sinclair. I'm afraid I can't come to the phone for you.
John, monsters, help.
When we arrived in the underground car park, I began to recognize my surroundings. We were at New Scotland Yard's Special Division. We went up to the top floor.
Come in, for God's sake. Mr. Sinclair, Miss Perkins, have a seat. How was the clinic?
Very relaxing, especially the leather straps.
Yes, I bent the rules a little bit, for your own safety.
How very considerate.
We couldn't take any risks. It appears you're infected.
Infected with what?
When you came back from your assignment in Yorkshire, you went into septic shock, severe blood poisoning. Dr. Barlow tried to revitalize you, but you died on arrival.
I've noticed.
11 minutes and 10 seconds later, on the way to the morgue, you came back to life screaming bloody murder.
You were screaming in Latin.
Nocte Meridian.
I'm sorry?
When I was... when I was gone, I remember those words. Nocte Meridian. But I'm not sure what it means.
The night meridian. 0 degrees longitude. The beginning of everything.
Or the end.
You were acting rather violently. The attendants had to restrain you. Dr. Barlow pumped you full of antibiotics and did a blood transfusion. You woke up, and then you fled the hospital.
I dispatched a team to fetch you.
Fetch me? She opened fire.
We're testing a new kind of ammunition.
On me?
It was crucial to stop the infection from spreading any further.
By shooting me?
Yes. With this.
What is that? Silver?
Quite costly. It appears to be effective against certain conditions.
Don't worry. There'll be no lasting damage.
Oh, that's all right then.
What happened in Yorkshire?
There was a nest. I destroyed it.
Lamiae nocturnae.
Vampires, yes. But these were different. I've never seen creatures like that before.
That's not necessarily surprising. Our department biologists have theorized that there are different breeds.
Like wolves.
Quite so. But we don't know what this means. How did they evolve? How different are they from each other?
Do you think there are more?
We're at war, Sinclair. Of course there are more.
And you think shooting me is the way to go?
Let me clarify something for you, Sinclair. I'm not your father. I'm not your friend. I am your commanding officer, and you are a soldier. You're no longer in uniform, I grant you, but you're still a soldier. Make no mistake. I'm interested in one thing, and one thing only. Victory. And should it become necessary to sacrifice one of my soldiers in order to achieve that, do not think for a second that I should hesitate to do so. Do you understand?
Perfectly.
Good. This is your next mission.
Abbott Sons, Southeast London, 12:27 p.m. Slowly the darkness lifted. Bill Connolly felt a tingling in his arms and legs. He saw nothing but white around him.
Where am I? What's going on?
And then, when he opened his eyes...
Oh my God.
He was lying on a metal stretcher. The walls around him were covered with white tiles. He turned his head. Sheila Hopkins was on a stretcher next to him. But they weren't alone. There were still shelves on the sides of the room.
Oh God.
The bodies were everywhere, discreetly covered with crisp, white sheets.
What is this place? Sheila! Sheila! Oh, thank God she's alive.
He saw a steel door at the end of the room.
Help! Somebody! Get us out of here! Help!
Scotland Yard, Special Division, 12:18 p.m.
John, monsters.
Bill! Sheila! We found this message on your phone. It appears they've run into a spot of trouble. When our men arrived at the accident site, there was no sign of Miss Hopkins and Mr. Connolly. They must have been dragged out of the wreck. For now, we operate under the assumption that they're still alive.
I'm on my way.
Don't forget your case file.
Ah.
You need to know what you're dealing with.
Thank you, Glenda.
That's Miss Perkins to you.
I glanced through the folder on my way to the staircase.
Half-eaten corpses?
Yes, in Nunhead.
Of all places.
Oh, the neighborhood's changing. They even have a chicken king now.
Delicious.
We need you to find out what or who is eating them.
The chickens?
The corpses. For the last few weeks, there's been a notable rise in drug deaths in southeast London. It appears the victims' funerals are all handled by the same company. Here.
Abbott Sons. You sound like you already have a theory.
Do you know what a ghoul is?
A ghoul?
They date back to ancient Persia. They live in graveyards and eat the flesh of the dead. They're thought to be extinct.
I'll make sure they stay that way.
I got into my Bentley and took off.
Abbott Sons, Southeast London, 12:27 p.m. When Sheila woke up inside the storage room, she was staring at a deformed, pale face.
It's all right. I'm here.
Oh, but it's not. It's not all right at all.
What are you?
My kind is as old as human dreams.
You mean nightmares?
I do indeed. Mr. Connolly, did you ever read Milton?
I'm sorry?
Not a man of letters, are you?
I'm a journalist.
Oh, well, that would explain your ignorance. What time his pride had cast him out from heaven with all his host of rebel angels.
What are you going to do to us?
We will kill you both. Then we will strip your meat off your bones. And then... well, I haven't decided yet. Cutlets, perhaps. A roast. Or marinated with barbecue sauce.
You eat people.
That is our preference. Rats will do, in a pinch. But there's nothing quite like a succulent leg baked to perfection. Or a piece of loin with just a hint of garlic.
What are you talking about?
For millennia, my kind has lived in hiding. In the cemeteries, devouring the dead. But under my leadership, we have taken a slightly different direction.
What do you mean?
We have grown tired of eating discarded scraps.
Cordelia!
Yes, indeed. She was a drug addict. Easy prey. Your kind has made a world where the poor and unwanted are simply pushed aside. And we are happy to receive them. We live in the shadows that you create. We like our meat a tad on the putrid side. Just the slightest shading of that sweet scent of decay. Doesn't it make your mouth water? Just a little.
No. I'm a vegetarian.
Good! Oh, good. Grass-fed. My favorite kind.
Have you no mercy?
No more than the butcher has for the cow. Au revoir.
Nunhead Cemetery, Southeast London, 3:43 p.m.
Nunhead Cemetery was like an enchanted garden. Everywhere I looked, I saw ancient tombs and statues, overgrown with weeds, surrounded by lush green bushes and majestic trees. The cemetery caretaker, a Mr. Peavy, showed me the way. He was a small, pudgy man with shifty eyes.
This way.
Ahead of me, I saw a stout, matronly woman in ill-fitting clothes. According to the case file, her name was Maisie Dodd, Cordelia's aunt, her only living relative.
Through the grave and gate of death we may pass to our joyful resurrection.
Among the pallbearers were two tall, pale fellows in matching black suits and matching top hats. They had an odd look about them. They worked slowly, using heavy ropes. Suddenly, I caught a brief glimpse of one of the fellows. When he looked down into the grave, I saw him licking his lips. There was a glimmer in his eyes, and I swear, he looked hungry. I was waiting by the main gate when she approached.
Mrs. Dodd? I'm DCI Sinclair, Scotland Yard. My condolences. Would you mind answering a few questions?
Are you arresting me?
No, of course not.
Well, I don't have to answer your questions now, do I?
But I wasn't about to take no for an answer. Bill and Sheila depended on me.
Mrs. Dodd! Mrs. Dodd!
Go away!
The death certificate says she died of a heroin overdose. That should have been confirmed by the coroner, but it wasn't.
What are you talking about?
No one except Dr. Meredith confirmed the circumstances of her death. And the undertaker, Mr. Abbott...
Now you lay off him, a fine lad he is.
Is that so?
Oh, yes. But people like us, we're not exactly rich now, are we? But he didn't charge us any money.
For the funeral, you mean?
Yeah, out of the kindness of his heart.
How touching. Have you known Mr. Abbott before your niece's passing?
Everybody knows him. He's always helping. The neighborhood is changing, you know. New people coming in, prices going up.
So I heard. There's even a chicken king now.
She was a nobody, that girl. At least now she's allowed some dignity. I lost my niece. Please leave me be.
I didn't get very far with her. Or so I thought. I had no idea what effect my words would have on her. She would soon make a fateful decision.
Abbott Sons, Southeast London, 5:39 p.m.
I decided to go straight to the lion's den. I had no idea if Bill and Sheila were still alive, but I was determined to find them.
Are you Mr. Abbott?
I am indeed. It is, I presume, a somber occasion that brings you here. I'm sure we can come to some arrangement. Tell me, what kind of coffin were you considering?
I'm actually...
We have traditional, alternative, oak, solid wood, or chipboard veneer. Those are quite popular.
I'm not looking for a coffin. I'm looking for my friend.
Your friend?
Sheila Hopkins.
I beg your pardon?
Miss Sheila Hopkins. She's missing, along with a man named Bill Connolly. I'm trying to find them, and I was hoping you can help me.
I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm with Scotland Yard. Several hours ago, there was a car accident. The victims of the accident have gone missing. And I'm asking in the neighborhood if anyone has seen anything suspicious.
No, nothing. I'm afraid I can't help you. Good day.
Nunhead Cemetery, Linden Grove, 8:48 p.m.
It was after dark when I returned to Nunhead Cemetery. The gate was locked, naturally. I looked around. There was no one here. I quickly climbed over the cemetery wall. My left leg was still aching, but my senses were as acute as ever. I could hear and smell nearly everything. The pain shot through my leg when I landed on the other side of the wall. I tried to control my breathing. I listened, but I heard nothing. There was no one here. I carefully approached the freshly dug grave of Cordelia Barnes. I avoided the main pathway. I heard something. Something I couldn't explain. The two pallbearers. I saw them digging up Cordelia Barnes's grave. In the distance stood a lorry. Mr. Peavy, the caretaker, was nervously pacing back and forth, smoking a fag. He was in on it. The creatures seemed like specters in the pale moonlight. There was a nasty red gleam in their eyes. Their fingers resembled claws.
All right, lads. Hurry up now. Where are we at?
They had reached the coffin. They started prying and pulling, trying to open it. They reached for Cordelia's lifeless body. With astonishing speed, they hoisted her up out of her final resting place. The creatures carried her towards the lorry. They put her in the back. like a sack of potatoes. I felt a strange sting of pity for her poor, lifeless body. I thought about stopping them right then and there, but I had a better idea.
Yeah. Just pay me what you owe me, you damn freak.
The creature pulled a wad of bills out of the pocket of its black suit.
That's right.
The man took the money. The creatures shuffled around the lorry and got inside. I couldn't waste any more time. I turned around. I ran back to the wall.
My leg.
I climbed up the wall near the main entrance, but instead of jumping down on the other side, I carefully pressed my body down. I was hoping they wouldn't see me in the dark. The lorry stopped at the main gate. The caretaker got out and... that was my chance. I jumped. The pain shot through my leg. It was all I could do to keep myself from screaming. I held on tightly to the roof of the lorry. I made myself as small as I could.
There's nothing out there. Right then, off you go. See you lads next time.
Whatever those creatures were, they were awful drivers. As soon as we went out of the cemetery gate, the lorry sped up. We took Linden Grove towards Oakdale Road, past all those single-family homes. Then we made a sharp left into Oakdale Road. We made a hard right on the Gibbon Road. I saw the Chicken King Perkins was talking about. And then we reached our destination, Abbott Sons Funeral Home on 220B Holydale Road. The lorry drove into a fenced-in backyard behind the mortuary. We were less than a mile from Nunhead Cemetery. Rather convenient, if you're a corpse eater.
My children. I feel the same way, Mr. Agnew. I know just what you mean.
It was time for me to go.
I'm sorry? Yes, I believe you're right, Mr. Ashby. I smell it too. Mr. Agnew, take Miss Barnes downstairs. I'll deal with this. Fee, fi, fo, fum. I smell the blood of an Englishman. Be he alive or be he dead, I'll grind his bones to make my bread.
They were coming around to where I was hiding. I pulled my gun, but suddenly...
Hello?
Mrs. Todd, what brings you here at this hour?
There was a policeman. He was asking questions.
Oh? What kind of questions?
About you. About Cordelia. About why there was no coroner's report.
The explanation is quite simple, really. Come closer, will you? You see, it's like this.
One of the creatures tackled the woman from behind. I didn't hesitate. I pulled my gun and leapt out from behind the van.
Don't move!
Oh, you are becoming rather a nuisance, Mr. Sinclair.
Leave her alone. Put your hands up where I can see them.
Oh, I'm afraid that's not possible.
Oh?
You see, bullets can't hurt us.
My shot missed him. He was faster than I had thought. Much faster. His fist shot forward and hit me in the solar plexus. I doubled over. The gun dropped from my hand.
You, Mr. Sinclair, are very, very rude.
Look who's talking.
Mr. Ashby, Mr. Agnew, would you please escort our visitors into the waiting room?
The creatures dragged Mrs. Dodd and me down a narrow staircase into the basement.
Did you ever read Milton, Inspector?
No light, but rather darkness visible, served only to discover sights of woe. And rest can never dwell, hope never comes, that comes to all, but torture without end.
Oh, splendid. So erudite. You know, Mr. Sinclair, I have always believed that men of culture and sophistication such as yourself simply taste better.
Here, take my jacket. I want you to stay warm.
Oh, thank you. Bill?
Yes?
Would you put your arm around me? To keep me warm?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you.
For what?
When you attacked those creatures.
Fat lot of good it did us. They're still going to kill us and skin us.
You're all right. You don't have to go on about it.
Well, I'm just saying. You heard him. He's going to make a roast or God knows.
Oh, will you shut up?
No, of course, yeah. But the thing is, those things, they're going to...
Shut up.
I'm just saying.
They're going to eat us. Inch by inch.
Yes.
Bill! Sheila!
John!
Oh my God!
It's not what it looks like.
Oh, it's not? I thought you were in danger.
I am. We are.
Terrible! Terrible danger!
What are you doing here?
What does it look like? I came to save you.
Well, you're doing a piss poor job of it.
Enough! Get inside, both of you.
Careful!
We spent hours in that storage room, but we weren't idle. Those creatures had my gun, but I managed to break off a small metal sliver from one of the stretchers, a useful makeshift knife. I hid it in my sleeve, just in time to...
Get up.
They pulled the door open and rushed in, 3 of them all told. They were fast, unnaturally fast.
The females first.
No! Let go of her!
They started with the women, dragging Sheila and Mrs. Dodd to their feet.
Bring them to the butchery. Mr. Ashby, take care of the males.
The creature rushed towards us. The stench of decay was overpowering. I could feel its cold, wet hands on my body.
Come on, boys. Time to die. Welcome to your nightmare.
They dragged us into a large chamber, covered from top to bottom in white tiles. Chains were hanging from the ceiling. In the middle of the room stood a stainless trough, presumably to catch our blood. One of the ghouls, wearing a plastic apron, was sharpening his knife. He stood by a metal table with saws and hatchets.
Let's see. Who wants to go first?
They lined us up in a neat row. Mr. Abbott uncurled his long, bony finger and pointed at each of us in turn, going faster and faster.
Let him go. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. You.
Oh, God, no! Please, no!
No, it's no use crying, Mrs. Dodd. We all have our place in the food chain. Mr. Agnew, would you please tie the camera? We will make a most delicious stew.
I couldn't let this happen, but I was tied up. The rope was cutting into my skin. I carefully slipped the small metal shard into the palm of my hand and started cutting. I could not afford to be seen.
Don't have to do this.
They attached chains to her bound hands, tightening her arms behind her back. Then they put manacles around her ankles. I noticed a large winch attached to the white-tiled wall. At last, the 2 ghouls were done with their work. They nodded to Abbott, but I was still working on the rope.
All down here.
His hand grasped the winch, and then the chains moved and tightened. The chains were pulled upward, and the poor woman was swept off her feet. I had to hurry. She was dangling upside down, hanging from the chains like a hog ready for slaughter. But the rope on my wrists, I couldn't get through. Then Abbott pulled the knife. He approached his victim. He put his long knife to her throat. I was too late. He pulled the knife across her throat, and it suddenly opened up like a red blossom. And then I was free. I could feel the rope loosening around my wrists. I didn't hesitate. I lunged at Abbott. I flung myself at him. I had the metal shard in my hand. He attacked me with his knife. I jumped back.
Mr. Sinclair, I like your spirit.
I glanced at Mrs. Dodd. There was nothing I could do for her. She was bleeding out, her blood filling the steel basin. The white walls were covered with specks of red.
It would appear you missed your chance, Inspector.
He lunged forward with his knife, but I was ready for him. I anchored my left foot firmly on the ground. then raised my right leg, swiftly kicking forward. A sharp pain shot through my injured leg. The base of my foot connected with his stomach. He was flung backward. He dropped his knife. I turned to look. One of the ghouls drew a gun. My gun! Then I saw Sheila Hopkins. She lifted herself up and slammed her body against the creature. I leapt for the gun.
There you are! Well done! I applaud you. Alas, what good does it do? Do you really think a lead bullet can kill the likes of us?
Lead? No. Silver, maybe.
The creature came from my left. I whirled around. The shot hit him in the chest. He was flung backward. In that instance, the second ghoul attacked me from the left. He tried to wrestle the gun away from me. His cold, wet fingers were like a clamp around my wrist. From the corner of my eye, I saw Connolly lunging forward, stumbling against the creature. It bought me precious seconds. I pressed the gun against the creature's body. Green blood and foul entrails sprayed out. Suddenly, Abbott lunged to his side. He went for the knife. He grabbed Connolly by the hair and pressed the knife against his throat.
Enough! You've had your fun and games. Drop the gun, and I'll let your friends go. Both of them. I want you to see the light, Mr. Sinclair. Be reasonable. My kind is stronger than yours.
What are you trying to do?
Isn't it obvious? I will remember what I was. I am sick of rope and chains. I will revisit my lost love and playmates masterless.
Rudyard Kipling.
Oh! Excellent.
You want to be human?
We are human. We are better than human. We wear suits like you, hats like you. I taught my children to walk upright, to eat with knife and fork.
Human meat.
Yes, well, that can't be helped.
I had my gun aimed at the creature, but it was too dangerous. If I missed only by an inch, Bill would be dead. Sheila raised her left leg and spun around. She viciously kicked the thing in its side. That was my chance. I took my shot. But at the same instant, Abbott threw his knife. My bullet hit him straight in the head. His brain splattered over the white tiles. But when I looked down, the knife was buried in my chest. I could feel a cold darkness reaching for me. I tried to force my eyes open. The room around me was a blur. Then I saw a man standing in front of me. I opened my eyes and looked around. I knew this place. I had been here before. The man was a dark shape, barely noticeable in the shadows. Dr. Sawyer.
There's no Dr. Sawyer anymore. You know who I really am, don't you?
What do you want?
Peace, Mr. Sinclair. I wish to sue for peace. Sanctuary.
You? Sanctuary?
Is that so hard to believe? Your kind has hunted us for thousands of years. You've driven us into the shadows. You've spilled our blood.
What about the people you've killed? Your kind...
Let us not redress old grievances. I offer you a truce. I'm here looking for the key.
What key?
Nocte Meridian.
The Night Meridian.
It's more than a place, you know. It's our holy land. And I believe that you may hold the key.
What makes you think that?
I've had you in my power, Mr. Sinclair, and I chose to set you free. Why do you think I did that? I believe you can lead us there, Mr. Sinclair. You may well be our Messiah.
I'm not leading you anywhere.
Mr. Sinclair, I want you to consider your next move very carefully, for much depends on it. I offer you my hand in peace.
Peace?
A truce, at least, between our species. Let's put this fighting behind us. All this suffering. Take my hand. Seal the pact.
Never.
Then you choose war.
John! Wake up, John!
When I opened my eyes again, I was lying on a stretcher. Paramedics were all around. They were pushing me towards an ambulance. I saw the night sky above.
John!
And it was full of stars.
John!
Oh, he's awake.
Oh, thank God, John! A few millimeters more and the blade would have entered your heart. What happened, John? You were just... gone.
Asmodeus.
What?
Asmodeus. Asmodeus. Asmodeus!
John Sinclair, Demon Hunter, Episode 8. The Taste of Human Flesh. Audio movie by Gabriel Conroy. Based on the original novel by Jason Dark. John Sinclair was played by Andrew Wincott. The narrator was Anthony Scordi. Bill Connolly was played by Carl Prekop. Sheila Hopkins by Martha McIntosh. Glenda Perkins by Jess Robinson. And Sir James Powell by David Rintoul. Dr. Sawyer was voiced by Peter Marinka. Horace Sinclair by Terry Wilton, William Abbott by Tim Bentinck, and Mrs. Dodd by Carol Ann Lime. The nurse was played by Milena Rose Binks, Peavy by Adam Longworth, the priest by Brian Deacon, Higgins by Steve First, and Ashby and Agnew were grunted by Douglas Welbat and Rob Rackshaw. This was recorded between December 2015 and March 2016 at OM UK Studios London and Iglo Music Los Angeles. The recording engineers were Juan Manuel Delfin in London and Jay Markovitz in LA. The voice director was Douglas Welbat. The creative director was Patrick Simon, and the casting consultant was Victoria Prentice. The executive producer was Mark Zieper. Post-production took place at Ear to Brain Productions. A Basti Entertainment production, all rights reserved.